Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another card video here at my YouTube channel. Today's card is actually going to be a very DIY minimal supplies card. I know you guys love these. And I'm going to be creating a Valentine's Day card. I think Valentine's Day is one of those holidays where making a handmade card is super special because you're sharing it with someone you love. So we're going to do that today. You're going to need very little supplies, just some watercolor paints, watercolor paper. We're going to get into the supplies right now. I'm going to start out by sharing with you everything you'll need to make this card. I'm going to walk you through it. The first thing you're going to need is a watercolor set. I'm using this very inexpensive set from Crayola. It comes with a brush, and that's the brush I'm going to be using today. I'm not doing any really detailed watercoloring, or I don't have a need for a very fine brush, so this little brush that comes in this set will do just fine. You'll also need a water source, and just a cup of water will work. I'm using this very dirty cup right here, but clean water inside. We're also going to need some watercolor paper. Now, if you don't have watercolor paper on hand, you could definitely do without. You just might not have the best results. So in order to just eliminate any frustration, I really recommend using a paper that is specific for watercolors. The paper I'm using today is actually Canson XL watercolor paper. And I've cut it down to the size of 8.5 inches wide by 5.5 tall. I'm going to be folding this in half to create the card. You'll also need a piece of scratch paper. It can be any size really, but having it cut to the size of the finished card helps me envision how big I want my heart to be. And this is going to help me cut out a heart in the size that I want, that I can use as a pattern for my card. You'll also need some scissors just to cut out that heart, and then also a black pen or marker. And this doesn't need to be waterproof. The one I'm using today, it's alcohol based. I think it's waterproof. Permanent. I think it's waterproof, but it doesn't have to be because the black pen will be added at the very, very end. We won't be watercoloring over any of the pen at all, so it doesn't have to be waterproof or anything like that. Starting out by taking my watercolor paper and folding it in half. Now, I can tell this is pretty stiff, so it's really not going to want to fold without cracking. So if you have a scoring board or even just a ruler and a pen, it will help. Now, this is optional. I just can tell that this is going to crack when I try to fold it, so I'm going to score it right here. So now it folds really, really easy into the size that I want. I'm going to unfold it. I just want to make sure that I can see where this fold is so that I can get my heart positioned just right. You might not be able to see it on screen, but there is a fold right here. Now I'm going to take my scratch paper and I'm going to fold it directly in half. I've used this technique to create hearts for videos in the past, so this should be nothing new. But this time I want to make sure that I have a heart that's kind of nice and wide and kind of a chubby heart. I want it to be kind of a more cutesy heart. And I'm going to start drawing my heart from the fold. Doing it on a piece of folded scratch paper like this helps me make sure I get a heart the exact size that I want. All right, I've got a pretty good little heart there. When I open this up, I'm just envisioning, okay, how would it kind of finish off that other side? I think it's gonna be really cute. I like that shape. So I'm gonna fold it back up and follow the pencil line that I drew and cut this out. All right, so now I have this kind of little chubby heart that I'm going to use as a pattern to draw a heart on my card. I'm going to put a little bit of tape off to the side just so you can see on camera. This is just some washi tape. In person, I can definitely see where the fold is, but I'm just going to put this right here so I can see the placement of the heart. All right, so I've got my heart here. I want to place this directly in the center, a little bit more near the top. We're going to need room at the bottom to add a greeting later, so just keep that in mind, that we're going to need a little bit of space down there. All right, I'm going to trace this very lightly with my pencil because we're going to erase this later. I'm just tracing around. This is going to give me a guide as I paint the interior of the heart. All right, I hope you guys can see that. It's very, very faint. I don't want a really blaring heart there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this washi tape because I don't want the very sparkly rainbow color of my washi to be distracting. All right, we're going to get into the watercolor painting now. And before we get to the painting, I'm going to do some mixing of watercolors so that I have a nice color palette for all of my painting. Now this card is based on a card that I've done in the past. I'll link that up in the top corner if you want to check it out. It was a really simple birthday card. I think it's one of my most popular cards I've ever made. It's constantly recreated by so many wonderful people, and they send me images and say thanks for the inspiration. I love seeing your work based on my inspiration. So I'm going to be doing this kind of on the same wavelength, where I'm going to be painting on some stripes and let the stripes create the shape. So the stripes are going to become the heart. I'm going to put some cardstock underneath this so we can see the actual palette. I'm also going to take some water and a paper towel and clean off my palette so I have room to mix. Put some water in each one of these paints just so it can start kind of soaking into the pigments and softening up that color. I think I'm going to use most of the color straight out of the pan just because it's easiest, and I want it to be a little bit more of a rainbow color. But I am going to limit it to reds, pinks, and purples, because when I'm thinking of Valentine's Day, those are the kind of colors I go for. So I'm going to do kind of a mixture of going from red, probably actually pink to red to purple, and have it kind of mix as it goes across. So red is going to be right in the middle. That's the color that's going to be right there. All right, I'm going to take the purple over here on the side. I'm really mixing this, letting my brush kind of froth up that color. I don't have much purple left in my pan here. I'm down to the very end. I've almost used up this watercolor set, and apparently purple is one of my favorite colors. Okay, so I'm going to add this purple over here. And then I'm going to actually make this kind of like a coral pink. And to do that, the best way is to add a little bit of red and, well, yeah, a little bit of red, orange, and yellow. And I know that red and yellow actually create orange, but I always find having a little bit of the orange mixed in first helps. And we want this to be a little more yellow than that. If you're working on a palette that's clear like this, I really recommend adding some white paper underneath so you can see exactly what your colors are going to look like. Okay, so now I'm going to mix kind of like these two colors together to get a color in between, and I'll be mixing these two to get a color in between. Okay, I like that color palette. I think it looks really nice. So now I'm going to start painting my card. So just remember, these are the colors I'm using. You're not going to see them on screen because I want to zoom in on the actual painting, but all of those colors will be the ones I'm using. Okay, the best tip I have for you for painting this is to slow down and let the paints work for you. Like I said before, I'm not going to do a ton of detail on this, but I do want the stripes to create the shape of my heart. I'm also not going to have the stripes all be the same width because I think that will just be a little bit too fussy, and I want this to be just a super fun, easy to create card. Painted on that very yellow-orange shade. And I'm going to leave a gap in between the stripes so I can just continue painting. I don't have to wait for anything to dry. Moving on to the color mix between the orange and the red. If you go outside the lines, it's totally okay. Going straight into that red shade, and I want kind of a really wide stripe of red. Don't be afraid if your stripe gets a little wobbly. It'll look awesome and have kind of like a quirky look to it. I think it would also be equally as fun if you did these stripes diagonally. I think that could add a lot of really fun interest. You notice I'm really slowing down when I'm right next to the edge. That's so that I can get a nice finished clean line. All right, and moving on to the red violet shade or the red purple shade. I think I'm really going to love this color, and it does have quite a bit of space to fill in until the bottom of the heart, so I'm going to make this a really wide stripe. And to finish off the painting, I'm going straight into the purple shade. Okay, so now I have my heart painted. I'm going to let this dry completely. I'm just going to let it air dry, and I'll come back and we'll finish off the final details of the card. This has been drying for a little bit, and it's got kind of some weird darker wet spots. So I'm going to go in with a clean brush, and it's basically just collecting a lot of paint in those areas. So I'm going to come in and sort of spread out that color just so that it creates a little bit more of an even painted area. Okay, so I did end up putting another layer of the purple on the very bottom of the heart just to make it a little bit darker. But now we're ready for all of the black pen. I'm going to go back to my pencil before I do that, and I'm going to very gently go around and just erase the pencil lines in between the stripes. I'm not worrying about right up next to the paint just because I don't want it to smear or smudge, and it's not that noticeable. All right, so we're going to put a Happy Valentine's Day greeting down here at the bottom. I'm going to keep it very, very simple and just do some all capital letters. First, going to put them in with pencil, and then I'll put up the pen on top and then erase the pencil afterward. This just gives me a little bit of planning time. See, like I wrote this Valentine's, and it's really off center. So I'm going to erase all of that, and I can kind of move it off to the side a little bit. All right, so now I'm going to take my black pen, and I'm just going to add this right at the bottom. The last thing I'm going to do is add a really rough line around the outer edge of the card. I kind of don't want it to be perfectly straight. I want it to be a little bit wonky, so I'm not going to do it really slowly. I just want it to be really quick going around the outer edge. The last thing to do is to erase any of the pencil from before I did the greeting. And that finishes the card. Everything is complete. Thanks for watching today. I hope you guys take the challenge and create a card like this. It's so super simple, and it can be done by nearly anyone. I really like how the colors turned out and the really simple color mixing. I really enjoyed making this card, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. On screen, I've got 2 more cards for you to check out. These are going to be some more DIY, easy, very minimal supply types of cards. I've done quite a few of these over the years, and they seem to be favorites for you guys, so I hope you will check those out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in another video very soon.